Hello there. Welcome to you, Query and Schultz here on ISC Sports Network. Jake Query, hero of the Colts and Packers game, Hot Rod Blankenship.
That's right.
Right here.
Mm-hmm.
All business for the Colts against the Green Bay Packers when it mattered most. There were a lot of flags. But speaking of business, as always, this show brought to you by WGU Indiana, and they have an opportunity for business scholarships that we'll tell you about coming up later in the show. But always happy to have WGU Indiana on board and helping us out in another installment here of Query and Schultz. WGU.indiana.edu is their website. But, Derek, let's get to what was a really sloppy conclusion between the Colts and Packers. But when it came down to it and when they most needed it, the Colts were able to execute and get what was really a solid win. I know a lot of people look at it and say it was a sloppy win, but when you can beat Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers and put yourself in position to still be right there in the thick of the AFC, then it's a good move, and it's a solid win.
Yeah, and you'd much rather have a sloppy win than a heartbreaking loss, and that's what it looked like at the end of regulation with how the Colts grossly mismanaged that in the final 2 minutes. It looked like they were going to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory, if you will. But I really thought, Jake, that the performance on Sunday and the win legitimized the Colts. And you may say, well, Schultz, what happened last Thursday night? They went in and curb stomped Tennessee, right? I never feel like Tennessee can be taken seriously because the Colts always stuff Tennessee into a trash can. So for them to get into a shootout with an elite-level passing offense, Aaron Rodgers and all of his toys, and find a way to win against an NFC contender, I think that legitimizes what we've seen from the Colts. I think we knew that the Colts were good. I think yesterday answered a lot of questions of, hey, can this team actually –
This runs
put
all
together,
week, so we just say
okay.
over the weekend. Yeah.
Could this team actually put together some sort of a run in the postseason? And while I was basically writing that off a couple of weeks ago, and I'm not going to pick the Colts to go to the Super Bowl or anything like that, I'm still not ready to say that. I'm at least open to the fact that at their very best, the Colts can beat just about anybody in the league.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And especially, again, look, it's a weird season because you don't have crowd coming into it. You don't have, when you go on the road, you're not facing raucous environments and hard counts and everything that goes into that, right? So it's kind of like the NBA bubble. I mean, you're going out there and I'm not going to say it's a scrimmage because of what the stakes are, but in terms of it's just guys going out there and playing. It's not very loud, not a lot of distraction. So there are weird things that come into it. By the way, can you tell me the most famous trash can stuffing in Indiana sports lore? You mentioned stuffing somebody into a trash can.
That an Indiana team got stuffed or Indiana did the stuffing?
No, there was a famous alleged incident involving someone being stuffed into a trash can in Indiana sports lore.
Oh, okay. See, I thought you were going like the Colts Thanksgiving against the Lions in 2004 when they won 49-10 or something.
Allegedly, this actually involved a person being stuffed into a trash can.
I don't know of any story of someone being stuffed into a trash can.
In Philadelphia, during the 1981 Final Four, there was a very, very controversial story that was all based on, eyewitness accounts that at the team hotel, an LSU fan said to Bobby Knight, oh, tiger bait, tiger bait. Indiana was playing LSU in the semifinals.
And that's what their fans say.
And Knight allegedly grabbed the fan, pushed him, and then shoved him into a trash can.
You know what? I had a little feeling that it was going to involve Bob Knight. just an inkling.
I mean, if you're
a
talking
little
about
tiny voice in my head,
if you're talking about like a switch that flipped where somebody lost their cool in Indiana lore, Bob Knight or Ron Artest are your two. Probably.
Yeah, that 1 and 2. But I think there's even a gap between Bob and Ron.
Well,
don't you?
Of course.
I mean,
29 years
Bob
versus 4 years.
Bob Knight's like the Chiefs of
right.
stuffing into a trash can. He's just on a different level, seemingly, than everybody else.
Speaking of a different level, the reality is, and I think that we knew this, look, the NFL, and in particular in social media era, Derek, is so knee-jerk, right? I mean, literally, with any team. Over the course of a game, you look on social media and you look at fans' reactions, and that's what fans are, right, is literally from one possession to the next, it's the highs and the lows. I mean, the bipolarity of fans by nature is always kind of amusing. But Phillip Rivers has been polarizing already in his tenure with the Colts. I thought a fine performance against the Packers. He was back, he was banged up. He had obviously the foot issue, but look, he seems to be a guy that his swagger, this is what you knew about him coming in, right? His swagger and his maturity and his leadership, I think is starting to now make it worth whatever he's getting paid for the Colts. Is he a Super Bowl quarterback for them? Maybe not. But he is giving them kind of this foundation for young guys around him where everything seems to be kind of coming together.
Yeah, I think that's fair. The Colts essentially took a $25 million flyer on Phillip Rivers, right? Because coming off of last season, there was this chance that he was washed up. And
as crazy as it sounds, they had $25 million to spend.
Yeah, clearly he's not washed up. And what they wanted was an upgrade from their previous quarterback. And while at the middle point of the season, some were questioning that. Even I had some questions about if Phillip Rivers was going to be able to play at this level again. But I think he's answered those questions, Jake. I mean, he is definitively an upgrade at QB1 over Jacoby Brissett.
Starting quarterback.
And I think at the end of the day, that's what you wanted with the Colts. You just wanted to get better. You didn't know how much better you were going to get a quarterback, but you just wanted to get better. And at the very least, we can say that at this point.
One of the things I found amusing about the Colts-Packers game was when Phillip Rivers had the injury, which we now know was like a toe injury.
Yeah, he says it's not going to affect him.
But he limps off, and on the broadcast, they immediately notice it, and he goes into the tent, and they're talking about it, and Joe Buck says, well, hopefully we can get information, which is, by the way, television code for the person on the sidelines. Like, hey, you need to find out what's going on. We're going to come to you for a sideline report. And then they showed for 10 straight minutes him taking his shoe off, and then there was the turnover, and he had to come back in quickly, and they're they're massaging his leg. And then after like 15 minutes, let's go down to the sidelines, and they say, Phillip Rivers has a lower right leg injury and was evaluated and is expected to return. Okay, thanks. Let's go down to the sidelines. The Colts are wearing white uniforms today, and
Yeah, I get
Green
that
Bay is wearing green and yellow.
They've always been part of the game, right? Sideline reporters, and I just don't really know, especially with Twitter and all of that. I don't think they have much of a function anymore because it just feels like you get that information pretty quickly without needing somebody to actually be there, or the people that are there are just fed the information that's super generic. Phillip Rivers has a lower body injury. Right. What does that mean? A knee, a calf, a toe, a foot, all of it? You know what I mean? Like, it feels like there's just a lot of general information.
Another thing I noticed, and once I point this out, you'll never unsee it or unhear it. I think Joe Buck is the best at what he does. I think he's very good. I like his voice. I worked with him peripherally in St. Louis. There's no doubt about the fact that Joe Buck has become the guy of our era. No question.
When you hear his
Rightly
voice,
so.
you know it's a big game. That's the biggest compliment you can give a play-by-play
I think
guy.
he's very good. He's poised. I like him as a broadcaster. But I did notice this. Every pass play. You ready?
Okay.
Pass is caught. It's, insert name of receiver. It's Pittman for 15 yards. Next play. Pass is incomplete.
Yeah, that's kind of his.
Pass is
thing.
caught.
Yeah.
Now, on a running play, every time, here is Hines. And it's a pickup of 7. Here is Wilkins.
Yeah.
Pickup of 6.
I don't mind it.
Here is
cool
Taylor. Pick up a 5.
The problem is that
it becomes difficult to come up with different ways. I know as somebody who does auto racing, I'm guilty of it too. I mean, every time it's like, how do I say a pass for the lead?
The problem is that and Joe Buck has really grown on me. I think it took a while for that to happen. I was originally anti-Joe Buck, but I agree. I don't think he's the best at what he does. I still think Al Michaels is the best at what he does. Yeah. But Joe Buck's voice, again, it's a big game, and of our generation, I agree with you. But where he got in trouble with and it's caught is infamously the David Tyree catch. If you guys have never heard that, go look it up at home. Try to look that up on YouTube, and it really is a butchering of one of the greatest plays ever. Certainly one of the most improbable plays in Super Bowl history. And his emotion in the moment was very monotone, and I think even he'd admit that he blew that call.
Think so?
Listen to the Marv Albert radio call of David Tyree's catch and compare it to Joe Buck, and it's not close.
Right.
Like, I'm not saying that you need to get Bob Laney and
Derek,
have an aneurysm in the booth, but you got to show some emotion when something
radio,
like that happens.
though, affords you the freedom to over-elaborate what took place because you are the eyes. People are not seeing
100%. I get it, but you watched that game, right? Giants-Patriots. Everyone knew in live time that Tyree caught it, and you're thinking to yourself, oh, my God, he caught that. Like, it wasn't like one of those plays. Sometimes an announcer has to not call it all the way because he's like, did that ball hit the ground? We got to make sure that it's right. It was clearly a catch. And I just thought, and it's caught by Tyree. And then Aikman comes in and is like, oh, my God, Joe, this is an incredible. Like, even Aikman, who is usually pretty bleh,
I like it.
even he came in and showed some energy with that. So look, I'm not crucifying Joe Buck for one call. Joe Buck has more broadcasting talent in his pinky finger than I have in my entire body. I'm just saying that's something that I always kind of think of when I think of Joe Buck, because it was such a famous play, and he missed that call.
Speaking of calls, there were a couple of questionable ones over the course of the football weekend. Purdue, which we'll get to, but the non-stop calls in the last couple of minutes of the Colts-Packers game, that's on the Colts offensive line, or that's officials getting way too whistle happy?
I thought all of them, for the most part, were legit.
I would agree.
I think the problem is, Jake, is that you can call, the old saying, you can call holding on every play. When one team has 10 times as many holding flags as the other team, you're kind of like, wait a minute here. Come on, man. Like, I thought in the end zone when Rodgers threw one of those passes, I thought you could have called a hold. I don't remember which player it was on the Packers.
But correct, but that was the 50-yard completion.
Yeah,
right?
he was throwing from the end zone, and obviously holding in the end zone is a safety. So that was a big call. I think it's just frustrating anytime you see flag after flag after flag after flag, and you had that sequence there where it felt like, I think 8 out of 9 plays there was yellow on your screen.
You know what's frustrating? I'm on blood thinners now.
Oh yeah,
for a year.
I was aware of that. Yeah.
You bruise a lot. I'm like a banana.
Mm-hmm.
Like you see this right here? Can you see that? Every morning I'm just waking up and I've got a different bruise. Right here?
Yeah, it's getting old, man.
It is. I mean, honestly.
Elderly people, that happens
yeah.
to. Yeah.
I know. Like I'm waking up. Literally, I'm getting dressed. I'm like, where did this come from?
It's tough. I mean,
it'll
happen to me. I'm in my physical peak and prime. I don't need to say that. You guys can see. So it's got a long time before that'll happen to me. But we're all going to go down that road.
Well, let me tell you something.
Age is undefeated.
It is. And I'll tell you, it's like a car. You got a car, you're cruising along, 80,000 miles, you've never had an issue, you've changed your oil, everything's fine. And then one thing goes wrong, and then
yeah. Can we talk about the rookies?
I mean,
let's get back. As much as I like talking about the discoloration in your forearms,
is that gross to you?
I think we have some other things to talk about.
I would think that
doesn't bother me. You know what bothers me is when people show me post-surgical scars.
Yeah, like right here.
That makes me extremely
That's where they went in. The
extremely
angioplasty.
uncomfortable.
Right there, that little
blood,
dot.
any sort of blood, bruising. I don't care.
Does that bother you there?
But like I've seen, like when you get the
zipper.
Yeah, gives me the heebie-jeebies. Colts rookie class looked great yesterday. Jonathan Taylor, we were waiting for a game like that. I think the best thing you could say about Taylor's game, Jake, was that he did a lot of it himself. I mean, this offensive line continues to, for whatever reason, be not good.
Particularly the right side of it.
Yeah, run blocking. I don't know what happened to the offensive line this year, but it's regressed. But he made something out of nothing a couple of times. He ran and broke tackles and had vision, all the stuff that you wanted to see from Jonathan Taylor you saw yesterday. Michael Pittman has been very solid since coming back from injury, and I loved him out of USC. I don't think he's the playmaker that some of these other young receivers are, at least not yet, but he's somebody you can rely on at the very least.
Michael Pittman, to me, Derek, is already showing that he is the player that we were always hoping Dante Moncrief was going to become. A guy that has the ability to stretch the field, but is a really reliable, maybe not your number one, but a really nice and in particular over-the-middle slant receiver that can make plays once his speed, obviously in the open field, he's dangerous.
Yeah. You wanted him to be a good WR2, and I think he's
number
been
2 receiver, yes.
A good WR2 on a team that doesn't really have a 1 because T.Y. Hilton, while he still is productive, he's just not a WR1 anymore.
Is this T.Y. Hilton's last season as a Colt?
I think so. Yeah.
Do you?
Yes.
Okay.
Which I'm okay with.
Got to get Paris Campbell healthy.
I'm okay with. I've been a defender of his, and I don't think that he's done anything worth like tossing him out in the trash for. You know what I mean? Like T.Y. Hilton's been fine this year, but he's 30 years old now. I think at this point it's time for kind of both sides to move on, and he's going to look to get paid as he should. But I think the Colts are going to have to just reinvest at wide receiver like they've done the last couple of years.
Were there other rookies that jumped out at you?
Well, yeah, my man Blankenship, 4 of 5. I know he hit the bottom of the crossbar on the 50-yarder, but hits the game winner, and at the very least, you don't have to worry about the short field goals like you had to do constantly with Vinatieri last year. And I feel like I'm missing somebody. Oh, Blackman, of course. I mean, continues to play at a really high level, and at this point, he might be in the DROY mix. So
Defensive Rookie of the Year.
People know what I mean, Jake, when I say that.
D-Roy. Yeah, they might be in the D-Roy.
D-Roy sounds ridiculous.
So does
no,
DROY.
No one calls it D-Roy.
Okay. No one calls it Defensive Rookie of the Year.
DROY.
Yeah,
you know what? I actually think with what he's shown so far this year, it's not going to happen this year, and that's an unfair expectation for a rookie. I think he can be a DPOY level player.
Defensive Player of the Year.
Again, people know what I'm saying.
Depoy. Is that what you're... Okay. Depoy, is that it?
We're taping this, so do you want to make the guys start over? They come in here and they work very hard to put all of this show together, but I'm willing to junk this show if you're going to trash it, and then we can start over and try again.
Would that make the show just an RD? Rough draft. Everybody knows that.
Not everything has to be shortened, Jake. I think that's the problem, is that you try to shorten everything.
I would think
there are certain acronyms that are
I would think of all
universal.
people, you would be the one who was most an advocate for everything being shortened.
All right, you know what? Here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a break. I know this is a little early to take a break. Let's take a break. Let's kind of gather ourselves, and let's try this again.
Are we going to talk about the hot cup of Schultz too, which finally appears to be happening?
We actually have an IU, a hard-fought loss, but still, I thought a lot of things to like from that IU game. We've got a lot of positive things to talk about, so we'll get a glass of water for Jake. We'll take a little bit of a break here, and we'll come back and try again.
BRB, is that what you're saying?
Again, we'll take a break, get it all out of your system. Corey and Schultz, ISC Sports Network. Back hopefully with more better content.
Dairy farmers provide us with safe, pure foods for our tables. A responsibility that takes intuition, resolve, and determination to make sure their milk is good for you and delicious to taste. Their connection with our community runs deep, passed down through the generations, ensuring that milk is always available at your store. It's not easy being a dairy farmer, but the rewards have special meaning when you can feed Indiana's families every single day. Learn more at winnersdrinkmilk.com.
We're a different breed, aren't we? While others rest, we choose to work. Where others are content, we stay hungry. They may not see us coming, but we know exactly where we're going. You won't rest until you succeed. Neither will we.
I'm Ryan Newman, and since I started with Indiana Donor Network and Driven to Save Lives, I found out that some people think that they can't be an organ donor. The truth is, anyone can sign up to be an organ donor.
Anyone?
Anyone?
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm sure. Anyone can sign up to be an organ donor. So don't count yourself out because somebody's counting on you. Go to driventosavelives.org and sign up today.
WB, welcome back to Query and Schultz here on ISC Sports Network. By the way, brought to you by this segment, St. Elmo and the fabulous, right here, St. Elmo Steakhouse, straight bourbon whiskey with dark cherry and bourbon vanilla beans. The Elmo Cola, which is famous when you go to St. Elmo, which has been around since 1902, an Indianapolis establishment and institution, St. Elmo Steakhouse. Just simply fill up your glass with a little ice, add 2 ounces of the St. Elmo bourbon right here, and fill your glass with cola. You might maybe you want to relax because it's 2020 and you're like, thank goodness we're almost at the end of this nightmare of a year, or just for the holidays, whatever it might be. St. Elmo Cola available throughout central Indiana. Kroger, not Marsh's, right, Derek?
Marsh's is closed.
Yeah.
You can still get the T-shirt at the shop.
That's right.
But Marsh's is officially closed, unfortunately.
Anyway, Kroger, obviously at Meijer. You can find it at Target.
Targets.
Different establishments throughout central Indiana. Be sure to ask them for the St. Elmo right there.
It's really
Fabulous
good.
Steakhouse bourbon. It's great stuff.
Isn't it kind of weird to think that this is Thanksgiving week, by the way, while we're talking about the holidays?
You know what's interesting to me about this being Thanksgiving week, and I think it's just the fact that it has been such an unusual year and one that people want to accelerate and get to the end of it. Usually, Derek, everyone complains when Christmas comes out before Thanksgiving. when you see people that put up their Christmas lights or you hear Christmas music overhead, and it's like, we haven't even gotten to Thanksgiving yet, folks. Like pump the brakes. This year, everyone's accelerating it. It's almost like people want to skip Thanksgiving, and I don't want to get into that whole political diatribe. But, people are very eager. I think that we've just been looking forward to something to feel festive and positive about.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Yeah, for sure. And my sister put her tree up. I have some friends back home that put their trees up. I've seen some around Midtown in Indianapolis, people putting their trees
Nobody
up.
says Midtown.
We're still on our usual schedule. We always put everything up Friday and Saturday of Thanksgiving weekend.
Now, you usually do the Black Friday shopping, but this year, of course, nobody's
No,
doing it,
they moved Prime Day. My boss, in his infinite wisdom, Mr. Bezos, decided to have the Prime Day and shift it into October. So we actually got a couple of Black Friday deals on Prime Day. So I think we're good.
Prime Day?
Yeah, Amazon Prime Day.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, people know what that is, that were born after 1972. So
Okay.
it's real popular with people my age.
Is it in the contract?
Online
you have
shopping.
to mention it so many times?
No, I actually don't have a contract with them.
Really?
I asked them if they want to do a contract, and they said, we don't really do that. You just need to pass a drug test. So I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you use your own urine on that, or?
Yeah, Jake. Yeah. I'm not 20 anymore.
Didn't Tyrann Mathieu?
Not that I have any problem with that, honestly. I don't want to get into that on the show, but I am very pro.
Who was it? Was it Tyrann Mathieu or somebody that a couple of players in the past have been busted for that, right?
What, failing a drug test?
Sneaking in someone else's urine.
Yeah.
Who was it that had the prosthetic? There was somebody that had a prosthetic.
Well, somebody
Garrett Blunt, maybe?
Somebody had
Appropriately
a urine test where they could tell somehow that it was like it had estrogen or something in it, right?
They were pregnant.
They're like, wait a minute, you're pregnant if you get this urine. I don't know how all that science works.
Robert Mathis wasn't that because he was allegedly
no, I think
a fertility drug.
I think that might have been I guess it wouldn't have been a blood test, right?
I don't know.
Yeah. That never, and we had Robert Mathis. We did that show with him. Great dude. I like Robert a great deal. He actually unfollowed me on all the social media platforms because he doesn't like anybody being critical of the Colts, which is fine. I mean, I don't blame him for being
defensive. He is a big defender of the Colts.
And I get kind of nervous around him because he is an extremely intimidating, I should say. See, my voice is shaking just talking about it. But remember, that was kind of one of those stories that came and went, and no one ever really dug further into that, I feel like. Speaking
of around the NFL, some of the storylines from this week in the NFL, obviously disappointing for Joe Burrow. And I saw a really interesting tweet, Derek, and I wish I remember who said it, but it was a really good point. And it's always interesting to me when you see a great point made and then you look at it and it's just some guy, with 48 followers or whatever. But it was a really good point that said teams are doing it wrong. Teams are too eager to go out and get themselves a franchise quarterback, and then they try to build the line around that quarterback. But if you don't get that line and the solidarity of an offensive line fast enough, you've now ruined Joe Burrow or David Carr or Andrew Luck, if you want to use that case locally, or, there's a long list there. And the tweet that I saw said, teams that are really bad, if you know that you're going to be having a top 10 pick for 3 to 4 consecutive years, needs to spend the first 3 years of that getting an offensive line and building a nice, solid offensive line. Then you go out after 3 years, and that's when you get your franchise quarterback, because you're still going to be drafting low, because it's not like an offensive line with a veteran journeyman quarterback behind you is suddenly going to put you in the 12-win category. So you wait until you have a solid line, then you go out and get your franchise quarterback. Probably easier said than done, I get that. But I thought it was interesting because you do see a lot of franchise quarterbacks that, Derek, it's such a short window to cash in and get your footing and get your confidence, and you can ruin guys. I don't know that Joe Burrow is going to be ruined. I thought he showed a lot of promise, though, so far here in the games that he was able to play.
Yeah, look, when you have a chance to get your guy, you go get him. Regardless, I get the whole
but
concept.
Do you put him out there right away?
Line.
Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers didn't play right away.
I think you have to. Rodgers is more of the exception than the rule. People point to Rodgers all the time, but Manning got thrown in basically right away. A lot of these other guys got thrown in right away. Certainly in this era, it takes 3 or 4 games for guys to get thrown in. So I think you have to go and just go ahead and get your guy. The NFL can be cruel, Jake. At any point, if your tackle blows a block and somebody comes in untouched on that side and goes at your legs, that could be it. Your career could be over. Or you get hit in the head, God forbid, something like that. I mean, it could literally happen on every play. So, yeah, I agree with you that it sucks to see cases like David Carr in Houston, who never had a chance, or even Andrew Luck here with the lacerated kidney and the ribs and, everything that Andrew Luck underwent during his time here, just getting beaten like a piñata back there. But when you have a chance to get your guy, you've got to get your guy. So I don't think that Cincinnati made a mistake or anything like that in drafting Burrow. I just think it sucks that, clearly it looks like they're going to lose him for the rest of this year.
A big win for Tennessee because that really sets up now another big showdown with the Colts. But, for Tennessee, you can bet they were anxiously watching what happened at the end of that Colts-Packers game for obvious reason. But got to give credit to Tennessee for putting themselves, staying in the contention.
Yeah, it made the win more important for the Colts because if you lose, let's say hypothetically you lost to Green Bay, then you lose to Tennessee, you don't have the tiebreaker anymore and you're 2 back. The problem is that if Tennessee would have lost, Colts win on Sunday, and then suddenly they're 3 ahead essentially because they have 2 plus the tiebreaker with only 5 games left to play. Colts are in terrific shape. We talked about this game as this portion of the schedule as a 4-game group, and I said on this show, if the Colts go 2-2, everything's fine. If they go 3-1 with both wins being Tennessee, then that's the gigantic cherry on top of the huge Sunday. You know what I mean? Colts will be in excellent shape for the division. I am interested, though. The Browns are 7-3. They have the tiebreaker now. The Raiders, I know they lost, have looked really good, and the Colts have a head-to-head meeting with them. The wild card race is very interesting to me in the AFC.
The Raiders, did you watch the Raiders-Chiefs game?
I only watched the end.
I thought
with Mahomes and the heroics, of course.
I seem to be in the minority here. I think Derek Carr is a really solid quarterback.
Yeah, he's kind of got a Matt Stafford thing, I think, going for him a little bit.
He does
on a better team, obviously.
But they can run the ball. I mean, they have obviously a talented young running back in Jacobs. Like, the Raiders have exceeded expectation, and I think that because of the caricature that he's become, there was kind of a popular narrative of being naturally skeptical about John Gruden. But I think the Raiders are starting to build a pretty solid foundation here, and maybe they're a year ahead of schedule. The Raiders are kind of like the Colts, with the exception of the fact that they have a quarterback that they've had for a few years. But they're kind of like the Colts in the fact that they're almost like ahead of schedule or exceeding expectation this year, and you got to give them credit. But they're going to be right there in the thick of things. Obviously, they're not going to win their division.
Yeah.
But they are going to be one that
they're going to be a tough out.
Indianapolis is going to have to keep an eye on them because if the Colts don't win their division, which I do think the Colts will win their division, if they don't win the division, then the Raiders become one of the right there for the wild card.
You can't lose to the Raiders and Browns if you're not going to win the division because then they're going to be in a world of hurt when it comes to the wild card.
7-3.
Yeah, and I still don't know if they're that good, but give them credit for where they are. I think Carr kind of went the way of Carson Wentz, where he had that big breakout season, whatever year it was, 2015, I think, where he was almost in the MVP mix. He was so good, and the Raiders were really good. And then he got hurt, ironically enough, against the Colts. And you kind of forgot about him, and the Raiders struggled, and they've built themselves back up. I think the difference is that Carr has gotten off the canvas, whereas Wentz got hurt, and he just never has really been – he's been up, he's been down, and you just can't rely on him.
I think a big part of you look at Carson Wentz, and I think we can now see that a big part of Carson Wentz's success with Philadelphia in his career was the play calling of Frank Reich. And I'm not saying that because Frank Reich is the head coach of the Colts, but I think that Reich might be kind of a quarterback whisperer, if you will. And what does that say about Jacoby Brissett, that Reich had an opportunity to work with him and see him for a year and decided that they needed to go in another direction? That's not a knock on Jacoby Brissett, but I think to your point, Derek, we kind of know the limitation of Jacoby Brissett, right?
Yeah, I don't know how
He's been a great teammate and a great professional, by the way.
I don't know how to really explain what's happened with Wentz and how it's kind of gone away, because he really was playing at an MVP level a couple of years ago, and then they win the Super Bowl weirdly with Nick Foles, who we've come to find out is just a guy. But with Brissett, I'm happy for him. I'm happy for him to be involved. I know that on Twitter especially, I've been kind of anti-Brissett when it comes to him on the field, but he's a fantastic dude, really philanthropic guy, a wonderful teammate who is beloved in the locker room, and he's a big body on quarterback sneaks. he's a much better option on QB sneaks than handing off to Hines or somebody like that that's just going to run into a brick wall. So I actually kind of like what they're doing. I don't want them to force it, and I don't want them to get too cute with Brissett, but I was really hesitant on them trying to sprinkle him in, and clearly Reich and Nick Sirianni seem to know what they're doing with sprinkling him in.
Speaking of quarterback sneaks, I think we saw against Green Bay, and I think you said, Derek, that you were kind of hoping it was Taylor's breakout game, Jonathan Taylor's breakout game, even though he's had a 100-yard game already. But I think it's becoming abundantly clear that you have two backs for the Colts. You have Nyheim Hines, who is a Swiss Army back. You can throw him out of the backfield. You can get him between the tackles. You can sweep it. You can do a lot of different things with him. Jonathan Taylor is a behind the quarterback, straight ahead runner. That's what he is. And he's good at that. I mean, when he like he did against Green Bay, is just going straight forward, he's got second and third effort to get yards after contact. I don't know that he has the vision or the lateral quickness enough to be a shifty runner. He is a straightforward power type runner. And then if he gets in space, he's got good breakaway speed. But that's what he is a behind the quarterback runner. And I think in that role and in that capacity, he's fine. When you try to use him in a Marlon Mack type way, it's not going to work.
See, even the yards after contact, he hadn't really shown that this year. He'd gone down a lot when he got hit, and that's what was so encouraging about that performance on Sunday was that he was breaking tackles. I agree with you on the vision standpoint. It's not there yet. That doesn't mean that it's never going to be that way, though. Jake, I don't want to pigeonhole him and say, okay, this is who he is and this is all he's ever going to be. I think Jonathan Taylor can evolve into being a good running back for them. I just think that when the Mack injury happened, and Taylor has these Star Wars numbers at Wisconsin, and we were all familiar with him because we all watched Big Ten football.
Correct.
We all saw him run over Indiana and Purdue for 3 years. We thought, oh, this guy's ready right now. Let's go, all pro. And he just wasn't ready to be that yet. I think this is more of a natural progression for a rookie player, but I am greatly, greatly encouraged by what we saw in that win.
By the way, you mentioned pigeonhole and you mentioned vision, okay? Pigeons, birds. I know you're –
I'm aware.
Yeah. You're not a fan of birds.
No.
You know who's a fan of birds, and we actually got a chance to tour their facility, and you hear about wood warbler coffee. Now, it's hard to say, warbler. That's a kind of bird, by the way, wood warbler.
Yeah.
W-A-R-B-L-E-R, wood warbler coffee. Now, I actually grew up with and have known for a long time Jeff Canada in Noblesville, who was with wood warbler coffee, and he is a huge fan of birds, Derek, and decided to start a coffee company that what he would do is – basically grind and have right there roast his own beans of coffee for different charities that help out different bird organizations throughout the country. And then that parlayed into making a fabulous coffee right here in Noblesville. Now, what he did with Wood Warbler Coffee and their website, by the way, Wood Warbler, that's W-A-R-B-L-E-R, woodwarblercoffee.com. So what he does is he puts together for different charities where you can get coffee. But you folks can simply get your coffee right there from Wood Warbler. And, Derek, the disturbing news in all of this for Jeff Canada is that not only his coffee is bird-friendly, and what that means is where it's roasted where it's grown is done so in a way that is actually approved to be bird-safe. But
by the Smithsonian.
You're talking to them, Derek, about the hot cup of Schultz. Is that right? This is finally happening?
I just can't. The smell of coffee beans.
It's
fresh cut grass, coffee beans. And then
What about gasoline? Do you like the smell of gasoline?
I can't do this myself because
a lot of people like the smell of gasoline.
You can't really smell yourself unless it's bad. But most people say that I have a natural musk that is very intoxicating.
Musk
so
is
coffee
what you
beans, fresh cut grass, and then just a little bit of Schultz. There is, and he did a great job. We got together and talked about, hey, hot cup of Schultz. What do you want it to be? And I said, well, first off, I want it to be bold.
Okay.
I want it to be rich. I want it to be like a sultry.
Well, you're not rich.
Blend. Well, like rich. I appear rich, I think. Like not from a monetary standpoint, but just from like skills and talent. Like I'm rich in that and looks.
Okay.
See, that's coming from a non-rich person when it comes to those things.
If they were going to have a coffee made of me, Derek,
yeah,
it would simply be smooth.
Yeah, that's surprising that they didn't do a coffee made of you. That's really...
Especially since I grew up with Jeff Canada.
Wow.
Okay,
so you had an existing friendship, and he still didn't want to make a coffee.
So the hot cup of Schultz is or is not happening?
It is happening. This is just a test bag. We're also doing
No.
5 bags of hot cup of Schultz. So you can get a whole hot sack of it. Just delivered right on your doorstep. Just bring it right in your house. And so we've got, I mean, I'm an idea machine, Jake, when it comes to this stuff. This isn't even the label that we're going to use. This is just, we put Jake's name on here because we felt bad for Jake. Okay. But I sent Jeff a couple of headshots. So that's what we're going to put on the bag. Just there's so many to choose from. You know, we're going to put that on a hot bag.
Okay.
And then the hot sack is also going to have my face on it. So if you get a hot sack of Schultz,
okay, sure,
it's also going to have my face on it.
All right. Now, if people want to find out more about the coffee, they go where, Derek?
They go to the website, woodwarblercoffee.com. It's right here on every bag. And Jeff is a great dude, and I'm not just saying that because he went to Allisonville Elementary.
Fantastic full bean or
with
ground coffee, fresh roasted in Noblesville
and
by Jeff.
I think it's important, Jake.
Simple as that.
It's important. We've talked about restaurants a lot. Support local coffee, too. If you can wait in line at the Starbucks on North Capitol, right outside of downtown for 100 years to get your coffee, please think about going and ordering at Wood Warbler or any local coffee roaster or anybody like that to support these people that are, first off, putting out an amazing product that's way better than anything you're going to get at the chain, but also they need your support and help during this pandemic as well.
In all honesty, you should probably sit down with the marketing folks. I think your brand should be an espresso because it just comes in a little short instead of
Again, man, I understand.
Medium. You know, you're like
I
get
it.
Venti.
I get it while your feelings are hurt. It would be hard for me too if they picked you over me to do a coffee blend. But there are 2 hosts on this show, and only one of them has a coffee named after them.
A lot of Purdue fans had their feelings hurt in Minnesota.
What a joke!
It was a terrible call. You want to get into that next?
It's ridiculous.
What else do we have to get to?
Well, we got to get to IU as well. So IU Purdue college football weekend. The Pacers very busy over the last week since we last spoke. So we'll get to that too, and all the features that you've come to know and love.
A lot to get to. Okay, it's Query and Schultz.
Why are you laughing?
Okay,
it's true.
No, you're
great features.
At an Indiana dairy farm, long workdays stretch into more labor after sunset. A newborn calf needs watching. Barn needs cleaning. Tractor needs some handiwork for tomorrow's tasks. Just like in your own home, the day's chores are never done until the family beds down for the night. Dairy farmers and their families share the same dream with all of us, that what we all do is worthwhile. Bringing to market pure, safe, and healthy dairy foods is what they do, from Indiana's dairy families to ours every single day. Learn more at winnersdrinkmilk.com.
You're watching Query and Schultz on the ISC Sports Network.
Because Brian saved 5 lives and started a movement.
Because Lester is a hero as a veteran and an organ donor.
Because Allie's legacy lives on.
Because I know how quickly it can be taken away.
I'm driven.
Driven.
I am driven to save lives.
I'm driven to save lives. Are you?
More than 4 million Hoosiers have teamed up with Indiana Donor Network to save lives. Sign up to become an organ donor at driven2savelives.org.
Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Derek Schultz alongside Jake Query. This portion of the program brought to you by our friends at the Shop Indy.
And this one great.
Wearing one of them right now.
That's
I run
right.
Indy. All of the ones that you see on the table every single week are selections that you can find at theshopindy.com or by going to either one of their stores, either in Broad Ripple right there on the Strip or in Clay Terrace, up in
920
Carmel.
Broad Ripple Avenue?
That's right. You actually know the numerical address. That's
of course
impressive.
Well, I worked at 743 Broad Ripple Avenue for 8 years, Derek.
That's right, Hardwick's.
That's correct.
It's sad what's happened to that building.
I'd love to get the shop to do a Hardwick's handmade cigar label T-shirt. It'd be awesome.
Who would they talk to get licensing for that?
Probably me.
Yeah.
No, it would have to be Mike and Joe Moran, the fabulous owners of Hardwick's.
They'd be happy to do that, I would think, right?
Yep.
Nostalgic, because that's what it's all about. You know, Hardwick's or Jake bagging groceries at O'Malia. They've got that T-shirt
Marsh,
as
I
well.
worked at Marsh as well.
Marsh's with the old 1970s retro logo. TP
Roslyn
Restaurant.
Bakery.
Busch Stadium, I have the shirt
Busch
from the
Stadium.
Shop Indy. TheShopIndy.com. Use promo code TUDDIES, TUDDIES, and you get 20% off. That's my special promo code. It's so funny. You knock everything on the show, yet the promo code is mine. The coffee is mine.
Okay.
What would you do without me?
Thrive.
I don't know about that.
Okay.
A lot of people said, and this is kind of sick to think about, a lot of people said it was a little bit of a missed opportunity with what happened a couple of weeks ago for my career. But
what do you mean by that?
well, those were, I'm not going to say who said that, but there were private conversations.
Are you saying that Dr. Mottman, who managed to put a balloon through my artery and spare my life, did you a disservice?
No, don't get. I am very happy that you're here and you're one of my closest friends.
Okay.
But
Let's not get
and
ahead
I know
of
that you
ourselves.
say the same thing for me, but
Not really.
this could very easily be the Derek Schultz show.
Listen, the Purdue-Minnesota, every time Purdue plays Minnesota, in basketball, it's been a house of horrors. We don't have to go over that for Purdue fans. But in football, it's always a crazy game between Purdue and Minnesota. Typically, it's like 65-60. I mean, nuts. I've seen bad calls. I've never, ever, ever been blame it on official guy. So much can happen over the course of a game.
Yeah.
Purdue had a wonderful play, perfectly executed, seemingly to put themselves in position to get a win in the Twin Cities. And look, I realize that from one angle, there was a split second at like the 6-yard line where it looked like there was contact by the receiver pushing off. I don't think that was the case. I think his arm was naturally flailing out. The defender reached out. There was incidental contact, but it was before the ball was really even in the air. That was a terrible call that negated the touchdown.
It was awful. There's really no reason to try to legitimize it. It was bad. I think what happens, Jake, is that sometimes when there are disputed calls like this, like pass interference, people go frame by frame and then they freeze and they're like, see, look, he's touching him here. Contact is not illegal. Interference is illegal. Contact is not illegal. You can make contact. Contact happens all the time while the ball is in the air. Hand fighting and all of that stuff happens all the time. They said, well, he extended his arm. I thought the Minnesota cornerback grabbed Durham's arm, and that's why it looked like it was extended, because it was hooked. Not that even the Minnesota defensive back did anything wrong there. I just thought it was a play on. I didn't think the defensive back or Durham didn't gain an advantage.
It was well before the ball was even in play.
I mean, even regardless, there was no advantage gained, and there was nothing illegal. I felt like it wasn't interference. It just wasn't. And some people were like, well, do you call that at the end of the game? No, the game situation is irrelevant. You don't call it because it's not interference.
Right.
So Purdue was sloppy as hell. They had a 10-point turnaround on that field goal that got blocked, where they should have had a touchdown that ended up, Rondale Moore bobbled it, so that ended up coming back after review. Purdue had a million chances to win that game, and they blew all million of them. But you can't let the officials off the hook. Purdue could have all kinds of mistakes and be sloppy and quote-unquote not deserve to win the game. They had a game-winning touchdown pass, essentially, in the final minute that was taken away from them. And that's what I have a problem with.
I will eat crow. I was wrong. Flat out wrong last week when I said that I thought it was possible we would not see Rondale Moore all year, and that was just something Purdue was doing to keep him in shape and to keep teams at bay.
And he wanted it to stay private because he didn't want it to be out there that, he was still kind of coming back from that injury and all of that.
And there it is. So, he was out there, and
and he was great.
So was David Bell. Yeah,
David Bell doesn't even need to be mentioned. You just know that he's going to be great every single week. He's an unbelievable player. I mean, he's special. He's a once in every 10 to 15 years type of talent. Rondale Moore too, and it's great that finally we get to see both of them on the same field at the same time.
Now, Indiana against Ohio State, you got to give them credit because a lot of teams would have camped up and packed it away. I think that there's something to be said, and this is not to take anything away from Indiana, but I mentioned it earlier, Derek. In a typical year, when Indiana gets down, what were they down, 28-7? I think at
35-7 at the beginning of the third quarter.
Yeah, so a lot of teams at that point, you would say, well, the Indiana of old would have packed it up. There's also not 105,000 people screaming at you during that time when you're down 35-7.
That was an advantage for Indiana.
But Michael Penix was sensational. And, I'll be honest, I thought Indiana has a very – look, their front four is no joke. I've told you they have really good corners. Defensively, I think they kind of kept Fields at bay, and they kept him guessing a little bit. Michael Penix was the more in-rhythm quarterback in that game, and he's going against a guy that is certainly going to be in New York City for the Heisman presentation.
Here, I'll say it because it's true. Michael Penix was the best quarterback on the field on Saturday. Like, do I think Penix is better than Fields? No. But on Saturday, he was the best quarterback on the field.
Correct.
And I don't think it was particularly close. Fields was I don't know what he was doing on a couple of those interceptions. Those were not only horrible throws, they were terrible decisions, and not like him at all. He is not turnover prone. I think it was the best possible realistic outcome. And if you say, well, I expect Indiana to win every game. Expecting Indiana to go in and beat Ohio State on the road, even in that sort of an atmosphere, Indiana needs to walk before they run. And we've seen them walk. In fact, we've seen them power walk, basically, through this Big Ten schedule. Are they in a place where they're ready to beat Ohio State at their place? No. But they're certainly ready and in a place where they can compete with them. So I think out of realistic outcomes, it was the best possible outcome for Indiana.
Here is it's not hesitation. My natural, maybe it's cynicism. My reality when it comes to Indiana. I think Indiana's got talent. And I think Indiana this year was perfectly designed for breakthrough Indiana. You have no crowds. You have, Michigan's really down. Penn State's really down. So in their side of the division, it's there for them. You go into Ohio State, and kudos to them. I mean, they looked good once they got down, and they did a great job to come back and put themselves in position to almost, to possibly force an overtime. Having said all of that, while I think Indiana's trajectory is certainly heading in the right direction and is looking to be heading in a direction it hasn't been seen since the Bill Mallory era, I've seen people that are like, see, that's it. Indiana football's arrived. It's a football school, and this is what it's going to be. Bowl game every year, baby. Soon to be breaking through on the Michigan State, Iowa plane that they have vacated, and right there on the cusp of Ohio State year in and year out. Kansas went to a BCS game. Missouri had their years there under Gary Pinkel where they were right there. It takes a long time to build something that's long-term sustainable. I think Tom Allen, and I totally admit I told Tom Allen when we had him on our radio show that I was wrong. I was skeptical of Tom Allen when he got the job at Indiana, and he's done a remarkable job. And they have bought in lock, stock, and barrel to Tom Allen. My hesitation, Derek, is this. I love the enthusiasm Tom Allen has for his team and that his team has for Coach Allen. But after every game, when you see the video of him with this emotional rah-rah and then crowd surfing with the team and LEO and all of that, it's wonderful. But can it sustain every single week? If your boss comes to you and says, and has a meeting on a Monday and says, I thought you guys did such a wonderful job over the course of the week, here is a $1,000 bonus. And everybody goes, ah. And so the next week, the productivity is at the all-time high. And then the next week he gets together and he gives another fantastic cheer and hands out another $1,000 check. After like 8 weeks, are you going to be continued to be driven by that $1,000 check, or is it just kind of like, it's what we do. We get a $1,000 check.
It can be exhausting, but Jake,
guys are buying in. I get it.
They now expect to win.
I understand that.
That's the big mental hurdle to cross. When you take the field and expect to win at Indiana, that's something that Indiana has never done.
I totally get that. My only, and I'm not saying that my fear. I hope I'm wrong. My fear is that while he's done a great job of using that energy to instill a confidence in his guys, does he now have to kind of reinvent other motivational tactics because the rah-rah is eventually going to start just becoming background noise?
I think you always evolve as a coach and change. I think a great example of an evolution of a coach is what Brian Kelly has kind of gone through at Notre Dame while we're talking about local teams. But Tom Allen is who he is. This is who he is. He's an emotional guy. I don't think that's ever going to change. Do I watch some of those videos sometimes and think it's a little cheeseball? Yeah, of course I do. But clearly the players are into it.
Guys are buying in.
And again, expecting to win, I think, is the biggest mental hurdle for Indiana. As far as the pandemic is concerned and Indiana taking advantage of that, good for them. I think Jeremy Gray put it best, and I understand that he's an employee of the Indiana University Athletic Department, but he's a guy that I've known for 20 years and you've known for a long time going back to the North Central days. He wrote, look, in the pandemic, we've seen greatness and great teams be great. The Dodgers, who were the best team in baseball all year, won it. The Lakers with LeBron James won it, right? Dustin Johnson laid waste to everybody in the Masters. People are rising to the occasion during this pandemic, and Indiana needs to get credit for rising to the occasion. It's not their fault that Penn State is broken. They played a role in breaking Penn State. It's not their fault that Jim Harbaugh has no idea what he's doing. That's on them.
What is going on with Michigan, man?
They were down 17-0. I felt bad for Rutger because that would have been a really big thing for Rutger and their program to have a scalp like that for Michigan. But, Rutger is not ready to be Rutgers yet.
Actually, if you folks are ready to advance yourself, whether it be in a business standpoint or an education standpoint, why not think about WGU Indiana? You're talking about Indiana's online accredited university. And think about this. Busy schedule, maybe you've got kids, work is demanding, but you want to get that additional degree or maybe your first degree, no problem, because there's no class times. It's work at your schedule when you go to WGU Indiana and you want to do it online. And right now, maybe it's a business aspect that you want to get a business degree or do something to advance your business. WGU Indiana is aware of that, and that's why right now they're offering scholarships for that business opportunity. WGU.edu/business ready is where you can find out more about the opportunities at WGU Indiana, because ambition never rests, and nor should your desire to better yourself when it comes to your education. WGU Indiana, sponsor of this program, but also Indiana's online accredited university. That's the beauty of what they have at WGU Indiana. Just kind of work at your own schedule, and the owl right there, always looking in there.
I've got the monitor in front of me.
Sage
so
the owl.
That eye just staring at me.
It's wonderful.
I love WGU Indiana, but I wish they would have chosen a different mascot.
We have some segments to get to next.
We do, but Pacers, and then we'll get to some of our segments, the Shops Bite or Bullweep, our American Dairy Association Indiana Winners Drink Milk, as well as Love Heating and Cooling, Love That Play.
All right.
All still to come. Coming up. Corey and Schultz, stick with us. ISC Sports Network.
We're a different breed, aren't we? While others rest, we choose to work. Where others are content, we stay hungry. They may not see us coming, but we know exactly where we're going. You won't rest until you succeed. Neither will we.
Welcome back to Corey and Schultz. We've got some of our segments to get to and some Pacers talk, but wanted to remind you that this portion of Q&S brought to you by our friends at the Indiana Donor Network. Driven to save lives.
The number two.
The number two. It's important to go ahead and do that. And check them out online at driventosavelives.org. It's the best thing that you can do, Jake, is to be
Absolutely.
an organ donor. We've got 1,300 Hoosiers right now awaiting life-saving organ transplants. So if you can be an organ donor, if you can go ahead and sign up and do that, go ahead and do that. It even says so on your driver's license.
No
right?
age restriction and no age minimum to become a donor.
Brian Clausen, who tragically died in an IndyCar wreck a couple of years ago, saved, I want to make sure I get the number right. Did he save 5 lives?
I think that's right.
Yeah. I mean, it's incredible.
You
one
can save up
person.
To, tissue donors can save up to 75 lives, help out 75 different people. Organ donors, I think it's up to 8 lives that you can save. Justin Wilson also as well.
Yeah.
My
Driven
Uncle Dwayne,
the number 2, save lives.
My Uncle Dwayne was a heart recipient, so our family's been impacted by it for sure.
Good old Uncle D.
That's right.
How's he doing?
Well, he passed away years later, Derek. Aren't you glad you asked?
Okay, yeah.
No, my Uncle Dwayne had a heart transplant in 1985, and that extended his life by some 20 years. And he died of natural causes as an older man, much later in life.
I probably should have known that, given your age, that your Uncle D might be. We can get that in post, right, guys? We'll just timestamp that, and we'll edit that out in post.
Okay.
Go ahead and knock
Uncle Dwayne.
that out. The Pacers busy. In fact, the Pacers busy with the moves that they didn't make. Everyone was a Twitter about Gordon Hayward saying that he wanted to come to Indiana, and there was a sign and trade deal. And the problem is, anytime you deal with Boston, it's just the biggest chore in the world because Danny Ainge never wants to trade with anybody. So he wants, Miles Turner and TJ Warren. Give me a break for Gordon Hayward, which was a hard no. Pacers came back with Turner and McDermott, which I thought was a fair deal.
They did.
Yeah, which I thought was a fair deal. And instead, Boston let him walk out for nothing. So there you go, Danny Ainge. You get nothing instead.
Right.
Fine with me.
Look,
That contract is absurd.
Gordon Hayward's a wonderful player when he's healthy. He's very rarely healthy. He's missed, 100 games that he's missed since he signed with the Celtics, got a mega deal. I thought it was curious that he bypassed $34 million as a player option to become a free agent. Now, you could look at it and say, well, he got a deal that signed for $30 million a year, so he lost money. Well, not really, because I think he knew you got to strike when the iron's hot, and he wanted the long-term stability. So a 4-year, $120 million deal. So he gets $30 million a year, but he gets it for 4 years, and I think he knew that $34 million was going to be a one-time deal.
He played his cards right. The problem is that you win the hand and then you get sent to, I think, the most poorly run franchise in the entire NBA.
In Charlotte?
Yeah. I mean, you saw that Charlotte had to waive and stretch Batum, who was on a terrible contract from a couple of years ago, just to make room for Hayward. And the joke that I made, and, I always root for Indiana guys. I love Gordon Hayward. I remember when he had braces, for God's sake. I went to the IHSAA luncheon, and Gordon Hayward was there when he was a little kid. You know what I mean? We've watched him
grow. He looked like Howdy Doody.
Yeah, we've watched him grow from state champion at Brownsburg with Julian Mavunga into Final Four participant with Butler into an all-star with the Celtics, now to a $120 million man with Charlotte. But there's a very good chance, Jake, that ends up being a really bad contract that Charlotte has to waive and stretch 3 years from now.
There are a lot of people that feel it is a certainty that it's a bad contract.
I was open to the Pacers acquiring him, not for Turner and Warren, and not even for Turner and Oladipo, because not only do you have to give up pieces, then you have to pay Hayward. And I just don't think he's worth what he commanded on the open market.
I think with the Pacers, the thing that is interesting in free agency is not necessarily the guys like Gordon Hayward they didn't get, but rather guys that they have not yet lost. Aaron Holiday, for example, is one that a lot of people are coming after in terms of him being mentioned in trade ideas or teams have an interest in him. And actually Goga as well. I've been told repeatedly that Aaron Holiday and Goga are the two guys that other teams seem to have the most interest in their upside, if you will. I think the Pacers really like Aaron Holiday, although they went out and got themselves some depth at the point guard position, and it came at the cost of a former Aaron Holiday college teammate in TJ Leaf, who they sent off for what LeCure is his last name.
Jalen LeCue.
LeCue. Yes, LeCue. Yes. He is a native of New York that bypassed college, went into the NBA, has not gotten a lot of time. He's a 6'4" guard that was a late bloomer at the high school level, played at three different high schools. But by the time he was ready to come into the NBA, obviously teams saw something in him because he got an opportunity. But
he can't be any worse than TJ Leaf. It was time to move on from TJ Leaf.
The TJ Leaf
nice guy, but it didn't work out. He didn't show that he could be a capable, even rotational NBA player. So the Pacers, I think, have checked the boxes so far this year. Now, this is not sexy, but they're up against the cap and the tax. There's not really much they can do. So re-sign Justin Holiday was number one. They did that, right?
And not, that was at a pretty good cost.
Yeah, $18 million for 3 years. That's a manageable deal. 2, dump TJ Leaf on somebody's lap. Just drive out to the cornfields and just put him out of the car, drive off. Check. Right?
That seems
they
a little
did that.
Harsh.
They did that.
I don't know. What kind of car would they have driven?
Okay. Wait, let's move on to the next thing.
With this, so did they tell him there was something out there and then they're like, floor it, go? Or did they push him out of the car? What did they do exactly? And where is this cornfield? Is it in Oklahoma? Because they
yes. Coincidentally enough,
dropped him off in Oklahoma.
The cornfield is in Oklahoma.
Who was driving the car?
Kevin Pritchard, of course.
Okay, so Kevin Pritchard's driving the car. Is it just he and TJ Leaf? And
Yep.
what does he say to entice him out of the car? What did he say to him to get him out of the car? And then he punches
Just
it.
roll a basketball. Go get it. And then just floor it. Leave him there.
Was he in the back seat? The passenger seat? Where was he?
And then the third thing that I was going to say, Jake, while you gather yourself,
Okay.
use your second-round pick to take a flyer on someone who has upside. That's the whole point of picking 54th. A lot of times the 54th player selected never even plays in an NBA game. So just take a flyer. And I thought they took the ultimate flyer with Cassius Stanley because I think that he is an incredible athlete.
He's Gerald Green.
Yeah.
Remember
his
Gerald Green?
vertical jump, I think, surpassed even Zion Williamson's.
It did.
And very, very raw, obviously. But on some draft boards was a fringe first-round pick, and they got him at 54.
He's Gerald Green. He's going to be a guy that's going to be in the dunk contest, assuming he makes the roster.
If he comes in and he's Gerald Green, that pick is a huge win. Because Gerald Green, at the very least,
right. I mean,
he got minutes, to be an NBA
right?
player.
Yeah.
Also, they brought back Jakar Sampson and Amita Brima, who they had in Fort Wayne, who had a really bad leg injury. They brought him back on a deal as well.
I like Jakar Sampson.
So, mostly the Pacers have been tinkering with the back of their roster. They did look at a couple of sign-in trades, notably with Hayward, who we just talked about. But all in all, Jake, this is really all that they could do. I still think they're going to try to find a trade partner for either Oladipo or Turner. I'd be surprised if they ran it back with this entire team.
They're not going to leave them out on a cornfield, right?
But then again, no, they're too good for that. But then again, you've got a new head coach, so maybe they thought to themselves, hey, let's see what Miles Turner can do with a new head coach.
Do you think they let TJ Leaf make a phone call? I mean, did he have his cell phone with him when they
I'm regretting,
drove away?
Yeah, I'm kind of regretting that analogy. Yeah.
Okay.
Because it implies that I've done that with somebody before, and I've never done that with somebody before.
Yeah, I don't think that's legal, right?
To just drop somebody off in a cornfield and speed off? No, it's a very inhumane thing to do. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a very, very mean thing to do. We've got our features when we come back. We'll have some milk here. American Dairy Association.
It's M-I-L-K, milk.
Of Indiana. Winners drink milk. We'll pick our winners, buy it or boldly. Plenty more to get to before we wrap up here on episode 12 of Query and Schultz, ISC Sports Network. Stick around.
At an Indiana dairy farm, long workdays stretch into more labor after sunset. A newborn calf needs watching. Barn needs cleaning. Tractor needs some handiwork for tomorrow's tasks. Just like in your own home, the day's chores are never done until the family beds down for the night. Dairy farmers and their families share the same dream with all of us, that what we all do is worthwhile. Bringing to market pure, safe, and healthy dairy foods is what they do, from Indiana's dairy families to ours every single day. Learn more at winnersdrinkmilk.com.
We're a different breed, aren't we? While others rest, we choose to work. Where others are content, we stay hungry. They may not see us coming, but we know exactly where we're going. You won't rest until you succeed. Neither will we.
The drive, the take, fouled, and it goes! Lobbing it to the back of the end zone. They're going to say it's a touchdown. Left foot gets through. Goal for Vargas. Hamilton will score.
Talking about WGU Indiana, and I was mentioning that WGU Indiana, one of the beauties of it is, of course, that you work on your own schedule in terms of your education. And when it comes to your own schedule, no matter what time of the day, we've got you covered in terms of the beverages here on Query and Schultz. For example, you start out the morning with your Wood Warbler coffee, preferably right here, the Birdsong blend, and not the hot cup of Schultzy. And then, in the evening time, perhaps, as you're unwinding, that's when you enjoy your Elmo Cola, your St. Elmo, the fabulous bourbon from St. Elmo. Elmo Cola is, of course, they're wonderful here, cherry and dark cherry and bourbon vanilla blend bourbon mixed in with a little bit of cola. And then, of course, over the course of the day, at any time, Derek, you can never go wrong with milk, whether it be with one of your meals or whether it be after a workout. Bottom line is milk from the American Dairy Association of Indiana has all the nutrients, vitamins that one would need.
I have here in my left hand, Jake, milk facts.
Milk.
This has actually become the most popular thing about our show. When we talk, people on YouTube are saying, talk about the milk. Or on Facebook,
milk.
Talk about the milk.
Yes.
Milk facts. You
it's
ready?
Not an E, it's an I.
Here it is.
Yes.
I should know this by heart by now. I shouldn't need the sheet anymore. 1 8-ounce serving of low-fat chocolate milk.
Like right here.
Has as much calcium as, drum roll, 10 cups of raw
spinach. I feel like I'm getting more fat now that I can't work out as much.
As much potassium as a banana, and as much vitamin A as 2
but I still get my
hard-boiled
milk.
eggs. Delicious. That's a ton of recovery nutrition. Every time I throw my ish around at the JCC, I come back and drink chocolate milk. It is a great recovery drink. Jake's chugging some right now. winnersdrinkmilk.com to find more information and more milk facts.
Milk.
Also, dairy
Right.
farm facts. winnersdrinkmilk.com.
Your winner of the week is who?
Actually, I got to look again because I totally forgot who my winner of the week was. I'm sorry.
We've had a whole week to prepare for this.
Obi Toppin. Dayton.
Okay.
Dayton guy. Didn't have a single Division I scholarship out of high school, so he decided to go to prep school. Had a nice run 1 year at prep school and got some low-level interest, George Washington, A10 schools. Ends up at Dayton. 2 years later becomes the National Player of the Year, and it's actually a shame. I mean, if we talk about who the pandemic hurt the most,
The
Dayton had a
Flyers.
chance potentially to be a Final Four, even a national championship team.
Correct.
And,
They were good.
That, of course, all went away. But happy for Toppin as well because he goes to his hometown Knicks. And so it feels like the perfect marriage where the Knicks might finally be doing things correctly. It's a New York kid fulfilling a New York dream. It was great to see him be emotional. I love the emotion that we see from these prospects.
It's great for a guy that didn't have a lot of D1 offers to then go into the draft and get drafted by the team that's not necessarily D1 in the Knicks, right?
Jake, you know what? This milk is delicious, by the way. They're turning the corner. The Knicks. I'm not just saying that because I grew up a Knicks fan.
It's a long corner.
Knicks are turning the corner.
It's a long corner.
Just watch. We've seen it with IU football. Punchline for a long time. Knicks are starting to turn the corner.
Mark my words when I say this. The worst owner in professional sports is Jim Dolan of the New York Knicks. And so long as he has ownership of the New York Knicks, they might make some steps forward. It won't be long before they're taking 2 steps back.
Well, I'm going to text you when R.J. Barrett is giving his Basketball Hall of Fame induction speech.
Might be the case.
That night.
I'm going to go, actually, strangely enough, when we say that winners drink milk, I'm going to go with a guy that didn't necessarily win his game over the course of the last week, but I thought was sensational. And that was when his team had their back against the wall. As you talked about, they were down 35-7. But to throw for, I believe, the 6th, I could be wrong in that, but in the top 10. But I think it was 6th highest yardage total in Indiana football history to do so at Ohio State.
Most ever at the Horseshoe by a visitor.
Yeah, just shy of 500 yards
Yeah.
for Michael Penix. He continues to play sensational football and is a big reason why Indiana puts themselves and finds themselves in position. Maybe not for the Rose Bowl this year, but they're going to play in a big-time bowl game and have a lot of people excited, and kudos to them for that. Michael Penix, the quarterback of Indiana, is my Winners Drink Milk winner of the week.
Can we start talking about Michael Penix? Certainly as an NFL player, but like a top-level NFL quarterback prospect, perhaps? Not in 2021, of course, but next year. Already, let's say Indiana only has 1 loss, and it's Ohio State, and they win their bowl game and the whole thing, and they run this team back with Penix next year. He's got to be considered in the Heisman race, right? I'm not saying that he's number 1, but if you're having a conversation about the Heisman, you would think that Penix would be in there for next year.
And left-handed quarterbacks are always, I think they're kind of coveted anyway because defenses, it kind of throws people off.
I just never know how this whole thing works with these prognosticators because sometimes they identify guys and they're like, oh, this guy is unbelievable. Look what he can do. I remember thinking that way, and I'm not just saying this after the fact. I know you said it for sure at the time. With Trubisky, you'd watch him at North Carolina, and you're like, what is the big deal about this guy? Like, what do people see that I'm not seeing? Because, there are guys like Blaine Gabbert who just look the part. They're huge, and they have a big arm,
right.
and you think, okay, that guy's an obvious NFL prospect, even when he ends up being a bust. So I never know how they come to their evaluations, but Penix, to me, some of the throws that he had, and he has great weapons. I mean, Freifogel is amazing. Whop Fillier is a terrific player.
Yep.
So he has great weapons. Hendershot around him, too. But some of those throws, I mean, he threw 68 yards and dropped a dime in the air to Freifogel.
Correct.
Like that's a throw.
He's got nice touch, and that's
velocity. A throw that you'd be lucky to find 10 college quarterbacks who can make that throw.
I would agree.
That's how good of a throw it was.
I would agree. He has put himself, in the national conversation for sure.
So it's just something interesting to keep an eye on because I don't think we ever really thought of Penix as being like a Heisman level or an NFL draft.
Well, he's starting, he's on the
pick level quarterback.
He's
I think
now
we
a
knew he was
finalist
good.
like for the Davey O'Brien, or he's on the watch list or whatever it is. He's right there. He's not in the Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields overall conversation, but he has clearly shown that he is here. he's arrived.
For the 2022 quarterbacks, I think it'll be interesting to see where he stacks up.
I would agree with that.
Because you never know who's going to emerge. Somebody always comes out of, like Trubisky did, somebody always comes out of nowhere to be part of that. We have more features to get to. The Shop's Biter Bull Bleep, as well as our Love Heating and Cooling Love That Play.
Okay.
We'll come back with that next. Corey and Schultz, ISC Sports Network.
We're a different breed, aren't we? While others rest, we choose to work. Where others are content, we stay hungry. They may not see us coming, but we know exactly where we're going. You won't rest until you succeed. Neither will we.
Indiana dairy farmers provide us with safe, pure foods for our tables. A responsibility that takes intuition, resolve, and determination to make sure their milk is good for you and delicious to taste. Their connection with our community runs deep, passed down through the generations, ensuring that milk is always available at your store. It's not easy being a dairy farmer, but the rewards have special meaning when you can feed Indiana's families every single day. Learn more at winnersdrinkmilk.com.
I'm Ryan Newman, and since I started with Indiana Donor Network and Driven to Save Lives, I found out that some people think that they can't be an organ donor. The truth is, anyone can sign up to be an organ donor.
Anyone?
Anyone?
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm sure. Anyone can sign up to be an organ donor. So don't count yourself out because somebody's counting on you. Go to driventosavelives.org and sign up today.
Back for a final time. It's Corey and Schultz, episode 12. Thanks so much for joining us.
You said 11 a minute ago.
No, I didn't. I said 12.
No,
It was
you
11
said
last
11.
week. By the way, you can catch us on YouTube, an archive version of the show. So a couple days later, we want to, of course, ISC Network and our subscribers, we want to give them first play at new episodes every week. Tuesday at 6 p.m. online, Wednesday at 6 p.m. on Comcast. Friday is when we'll upload each week's episode onto YouTube. Just go to our channel, QuarrieandSchultz.com. You can YouTube.com/QuarrieandSchultz. You can like and subscribe there. Also, podcast form. So right at Tuesday, 6 o'clock, you can also find us in podcast form, iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Spreaker, iHeart, all of it. If you want to check it out and you don't know. Yeah, we're on iHeart too. Okay. Little twist the knife
for now, right?
They're all employees. They don't care.
they throw curveballs.
Nobody cares about us.
Okay.
Over there, they wrote us off, and that
they don't know who we are, Derek.
But if you want to find information on that, if you don't know where you're going, Derek at QuarrieandSchultz.com, I can help you. Or you could just go to QuarrieandSchultz.com/watch. That has all the information of us on ISC Sports Network, how to subscribe to ISC, how to subscribe on YouTube, how to subscribe to our podcast.
You said this is episode 12?
Yeah.
So in an interesting twist, that means more episodes of this program so far than employees remaining at our old place, right?
You know, I don't want to do that. On a serious note, some of you saw there was another round of layoffs, and a lot of our including our former boss, Mike Killebrew, who both of us not only respected as a boss, but he became a good friend of mine. Sad to see it. Crystal from Q95, who's very, very, Crystal McKenzie, very, very talented. Todd Violet from Alt 103.3. Christy Adams, who she started as an intern our first year with Corey and Schultz, and then worked her way up to promotions manager.
And Derek, I love all the people that we worked with.
Yeah, Ben Dietzel.
At no fault of locally. I'm in corporate America. You know, that's the way it goes, right? And
it just is what it is. I mean, I wanted people to understand, and this was even true at the time. It had nothing to do with us or the show quality or the ratings or the revenue. It was just we got written off a spreadsheet.
Right.
They cut 6 people in our building, 6 on-air people. They cut 1,000 people nationwide in January. They cut 6 more people and 1,000 more people just this month. So it's life. That was life in radio.
Corporate America, man.
Yeah. I'm glad to be on TV now anyway because people want to see our faces.
Okay. Speaking of, by the way, not corporate America, but locally owned, you know, this is the time when we've talked about the importance of local companies, local products. How about Love Heating and Air? Been around since 1920. That means 100 years now. Love-HVAC.com is their website for Love Heating and Air. I've known these guys my entire life. Great product, integrity, 4 generations deep now in terms of a family-owned business. 317-353-2141 for Love Heating and Cooling. 24-hour maintenance. They know their product. Great prices, integrity, and a valuable part of the local Indianapolis community since 1920 for Love Heating and Air. I love that play, Derek. To me, it's very obvious, but I'll let you go first.
Oh, it is?
Yeah. It's very obvious.
Did we both pick Patrick Mahomes?
No.
Okay. I picked Patrick Mahomes in the game-winning touchdown pass last night against Sunday night against the Raiders. He's one of those guys, Jake, where he's becoming like LeBron and all of that in the fact that you can't not watch what he's going to do. I think
the poor Raiders had to feel like they had a win, and then boom.
Scott Kazmir, formerly of Football Outsiders, who's a great NFL guy and a great NFL follow on Twitter, Captain Comeback. He tweeted last night, people were asking him where Mahomes is, and look, he's not Peyton Manning yet, but no one in NFL history has had a first 46 games like Patrick Mahomes. No one. You cannot find somebody who has been that good for their first 46 games of their career, and that's what's historic about what we're seeing so far.
Yeah, he's really good. There's no doubt. His ability to throw across his body on a dime and the arm strength he has, the only guy that I've seen so far in the league that looks like he might be able to do the same thing is Kyler Murray.
Yeah. He's basically having Mike Trout's career in a far more relevant league and a far more relevant team.
Right.
I mean, that's what he's doing so far. That's the best comp that I can think of.
Any team in the NFL is going to be relevant once they start winning. Right.
Well, there really is no irrelevant team in the NFL, whereas there are lots of irrelevant MLB and NBA teams.
My love that play, favorite play of the week, is actually Hot Rod. You're lookalike.
Yeah.
To come out, look, he had a 50-yard field goal attempt, and it's a little bit disturbing is the wrong word, but foreshadowing maybe. You don't want to see a guy with a 50-yard field goal doink the crossbar and fall short. I mean, did he get a low kick on that, or is that the extension of his range? I don't know. But when it came down to it after that, with a lot of question marks, with the game on the line, the Packers tried to ice him, didn't work. And Rodrigo Blankenship gets the game winner.
Yeah, that's the one.
Okay.
Look at that.
There he is.
Look at that. I mean, I was just talking about Patrick Mahomes. You're not able to take your eyes off of him on the football field. I don't know how you take your eyes off of this. I mean, I'm a happily married man and all of that, but that is clearly a very handsome person. Like regardless of male,
Sure.
female, whatever. That's a very handsome person.
Respect the specs, right?
Oh yeah, it's not just the specs. I mean, it's the whole thing, and that's what I think. Rod and I have a lot of similarities. Is that you understand that there is a package here that you present every week, and it's all of it. It's the glasses, it's the look, it's the smarts, it's the fashion. It's just a little bit of everything, and that's you want to be as visually appealing as possible to your audience. And he's been able to accomplish that, and I feel like I've been able to accomplish
the fashion.
All of it, yeah. You like me rocking the quarter zip?
Well, a lot of my fashion, by the way, as you know, on this program, presented and sponsored by The Shop, theshopindy.com, 920 Broad Ripple Avenue, or in Carmel and Clay Terrace. Very cool shirts from Indianapolis from a retro standpoint, or, of course, also for the local teams. As Derek had mentioned, the code word is Tuddies, which they didn't consult me on
Tuddies,
that.
baby.
Tuddies. Tuddies is the code word for 20% off. But, Derek, they also bring us our Buy It or Bull Schultz, right?
Yep, you ready?
Yep.
I give a statement. Jake and I go back and forth whether we buy it or it's bull bleep. Here we go. Statement 1. The Pacers made a mistake letting Gordon Hayward slip through their fingers.
Oh, no, that's total bull Schultz. Gordon Hayward, good player. But at that price tag, $30 million a year over 4 years with the injury history, not to mention, I mean, what you would have to give up to get him. No, that's the Pacers were smart to sit at the poker table and maybe show a poker face, but escalate for somebody else to overpay for Gordon Hayward. No problem with it.
You could have talked me into Turner and McDermott. That's as far as I was willing to go, though, because you're right, Jake. Not only do you trade for him, you have to pay him. Right. It's not an already existing 3-year deal, something like that. And the Pacers have done a good job really controlling contracts. They don't have a bad contract. People say, well, Miles Turner's a bad contract. $20 million for Miles Turner is not a bad contract. That's the going rate for a player like Miles Turner. Oladipo's contract's not a bad contract. Domas's contract's not a bad contract. Brogdon's contract's not a bad contract. There's a chance that Gordon Hayward's contract ends up being a bad contract. Sorry, I said contract like 100 times there.
If Victor Oladipo thinks he's going to get close to max deal money when his contract's up, that would be a bad contract. He's not a max player.
Yeah, and I still think that they're going to explore. But that's the beauty of this trade. You didn't have to trade Oladipo and Turner to Boston. You could trade them to anybody. And there's particularly a market for Turner. Second statement here. IU is the second best football team in the Big Ten. Buy it or bull bleep?
Buy it. I think we saw it. Who else would it be?
I guess it would be Northwestern.
Northwestern. Well, Wisconsin's pretty good, too.
Northwestern that was really impressive. Wisconsin was shorthanded, but Northwestern beating them the way that they did.
For right now, clearly, I felt going into the college football weekend that the best team in the Big Ten was Ohio State, and I thought Ohio State was the best team in the country.
Yeah.
And Indiana was down on the canvas and got up and put themselves in position to get down to the final round against Ohio State. So based on that, yes, Indiana would have to be the second best team in the Big Ten.
Gun to my head, I think Indiana is a better team than Northwestern, but I've been very impressed with Northwestern, especially defensively. That's a legitimately great defense.
And Ramsey's playing well.
And Ramsey's fine. You know, I made the comparison. They're kind of like this year's Colts, Northwestern, where you have this defense that is a game-changing defense, and you have a quarterback that can get you by that is capable but limited.
Right.
So I'll buy it that Indiana is the second best team. The Big Ten stinks. I just don't think it's especially with Michigan and Penn State being bad and Michigan State.
Big Ten's pretty bad.
The Big Ten's not been, but that's not Indiana.
But who's good? What league is good, right?
Good point. Yeah. I mean, the ACC is Clemson, Notre Dame, and then a bunch of teams that are like 7-win teams.
Right.
You know, that are all kind of the same. Last statement, and it's coming up here on Thursday. All traditional Thanksgiving food is bland and lame. Buy it or bull bleep?
No. I don't know what people call it in your household. In mine, we call it corn pudding. You know what I'm talking about? Cream corn. I'm sorry. Cream corn. That's what I meant, not corn pudding.
Just cream corn?
Cream corn is wonderful. I love cream corn.
It's kind of bland and lame.
It's not bland and lame at all.
Cream corn is bland and lame.
No.
Cream corn is like the definition of bland and lame.
No, I could drink cream corn like out of a 2-liter bottle.
Well, that's great that you can drink it, but it's bland and lame.
Wonderful.
All traditional Thanksgiving food is bland and lame. Turkey is bland and lame. Mashed potatoes are bland and lame. Sweet potatoes are bland and lame.
Pecan pie?
Stuffing is bland and lame. I don't like pecan pie.
I don't like it either. The glaze stuff in the middle.
I'm not a pie person.
Pecan pie, if they could just sell the glaze stuff, like in little pudding cups, but it's just the pecan pie
I'm with
middle.
you there. I hate pumpkin pie.
Work.
I've always hated it. I think it's
really
gross. I don't know why people like it. I think it's gross. Apple pie I like. So the desserts are okay, and my mom always makes a big spread. We're not doing it this year. My wife and I are going to grab Chinese, which I'm actually looking forward to. That used to be our Thanksgiving tradition when our families weren't here. But yeah, all the food to me, unless you do like baked mac and cheese. You know, I had Italian friends back in Connecticut that did lasagna and seafood, and that wasn't bland and lame. But turkey, potatoes, I like green bean casserole.
Cranberry.
Cranberry sauce, dude? Come on, man. It's like the blandest and lame. I mean,
you call it stuffing or dressing?
My mom calls it dressing. I always called it stuffing.
I call it stuffing also.
I think this is hard because it's hard for you to judge because you're kind of bland and lame. So things that are exciting to you, you don't understand because you're bland and lame. Those exciting things are bland and lame. See, like this picture behind us here, this is not bland and lame. This is exciting and sexy and delicious and all of that.
I'm thinking about...
that's what I'm talking about.
I think I'm going to write a book.
Oh, look, we could do split screen. Look at this.
Yeah, okay.
That's amazing.
Look, you got to look in the same direction.
Wait, hold on. This way?
Yeah. Now look upward. Put your shirt on your little collar.
Wait, hold on.
Okay.
All right. There we go.
Now, you got to do this though with you got to.
Oh, sorry. Is he pulling?
Yeah. And now look.
Did you see? I want my chest hair sprouts just to kind of come out just a little bit there. This is. I had no idea that we could do split screen. This is amazing.
I'm bland and lame, Derek, but I'm thinking about writing a book because people tell me that my stories are not bland nor lame.
That's not a bad idea.
Life.
Yeah.
My experiences in life.
You can give me a signed copy and tell me how much I mean to you.
Yeah.
That's something I'm looking forward to.
Count on that. What are we doing in terms of the holiday and our schedule?
We just come back here next Monday and tape the show.
We do?
Well, yeah. Okay. We're going to take 3 weeks off.
I thought there was
Christmas.
a discussion about sometime we're not doing the show.
Oh, maybe we aren't doing the show next week.
Yeah, why don't you?
Now that you just said that, I think Greg might have sent me an email that said no show next week, but now I don't remember.
Is only one of the two of us prepared for these things?
There might not be a show next week.
Are you doing research or not?
There's no show next week? Have we confirmed that? Okay. Wait, yes, there is no show next week. Okay. No, there is a show next week. Okay. So there is a show next week.
Okay.
So we're good.
Why don't you let everybody know and just put it out there on
We can get all this in post. The drop TJ Leaf off in a cornfield thing, we'll get that. The whole first segment that you ruined.
I mentioned my Uncle Dwayne. That was a smooth move,
we'll get that in post. Like I said, I've got a whole sheet here of edits that we need to make. We will see you the next time that there is an episode of Query and Schultz on ISC Sports Network. How about that?
Okay.
Thanks to all our sponsors. Happy Thanksgiving. Have a safe and happy Thanksgiving. We'll see you next time.